Welcome everybody to our prayer walking webinar, First Place for Health. My name is Helen Barada, and I'd like to open up in prayer today. Lord Jesus Almighty, I thank you so much for this opportunity for us to come before you, to be with you, to sense your presence, Lord. And as we listen to Janet, I pray for her today as she shares about prayer walking. She is just one of my friends and confidants, and just thankful that she inspires us all to spend time in prayer with you. And she's going to tell us more about it. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So it is my pleasure, honor to introduce Janet McHenry. Janet and I met through First Place for Health and have done a lot of things through that, but she's also a writer and a very successful writer, and she's actually my writing coach. And so that started this year. She's helping me with a book that I'm working on. But it's not about me, it's about Janet and her expertise on prayer walking. So Janet, take it away. Tell us about you. I know we're just so glad to have you.
Thank you, Helen. It's really a delight to be with you. And, there was a question ahead of time, is Janet involved in First Place at all? I'm like, yeah, I think about 9 years now. I started as a member quite a few years ago, and then a leader position came open. So I do have a First Place for Health group through my church, and we meet in person, and we've been Zooming the last year, and I'm gonna have to twist their arms to get to get back to church to meet face to face. But yeah, First Place has had an integral part of my life and my health journey for the last 8-9 years now. So I just wanted to mention that, and I'm very thankful to all of those leaders, First Place leaders, who have encouraged me over the years as well. So my health journey really started about over 20, I think it's 23 years now, actually. And I just wanted to emphasize, I'm just an ordinary woman. I mean, I'm like you. I struggle with my health. If there's an open bag of Doritos, I'm there. It's been, a challenge over the years to stay healthy and to keep fit. I think the worst moment was 23 years ago. My hips were hurting so much going up and down stairs and screaming at me when I was trying to get to sleep at night, and I was heavy, and I just feel like everything in my life was out of control. And the worst moment was when I walked out my back door one day and I found myself in a crumpled heap because my knee had given way. So I knew I needed to do something about my health, but I also knew that I needed, for some time, God had been calling me to a deeper life of prayer with him. So there I was, on the pavement. I thought, Janet, you've got to do something. What are you going to do? So I decided I would get up a little bit early the next morning. And before I started my morning routine to get ready as a high school English teacher, I thought I'll just go out and I'll walk a little bit. And while I'm walking, I'll pray. So I thought that there's this, two for deal. I love the idea of multitasking and trying to get more than one thing done at a time. So then that's how I started. And the crazy thing was, I knew I could talk myself out of this, because the alarm rings, right? And the list starts going through you. I'm so tired. I don't know how I'm going to be able to get out of bed. And I just can't, I don't want to lose any more sleep. But, in God's economy, he can give us, we can have less sleep, but more energy. And so the one way I didn't talk myself out of it was I knew I had to kind of tiptoe around to be able to get out of the house. So I kept my clothes waiting in the bathroom. Then, so that I pictured my clothes like calling to me, my workout clothes, and I put them right over my pajamas and just headed out the door. So I was trying to think, how am I going to eliminate excuses not to get out? So that's as simply as it started. And I was just walking and praying. I started with about 15 minutes, and I would increase a little bit. Initially, there was, though, a lot of minus to my prayers, my health, my husband, our marriage, my kids. I have 4 kids, and my job as a teacher and all of that. And that kind of changed one day when I saw what I call a single daddy's ballet. I watched this young man in the downtown area of my little town, which is the town of Loyalton, which is in the Sierra Valley, an hour north of Lake Tahoe. Right now, I am actually at Lake Tahoe. I know you see white behind me, but if I shift, you might be able to see, there you go, Tahoe blue. It is just a gorgeous place. So I live about an hour north of here in what's called the Sierra Valley. And what I say about the Sierra Valley is just like Tahoe, except without the water. My husband's a rancher there. And so here I am. I'm in downtown Loyalton, which is all of, 3 blocks long. And we don't even have a single stoplight in our entire county. That's how small our area is, very rural and beautiful. And I watched this young man pull up, park diagonally, as you do in downtown Loyalton. And I saw him go around to the other side of his pickup truck and pick up this little blanketed bundle and hand over that little blanketed bundle to a woman I knew as Cheryl. She was a daycare worker up on the sidewalk. It wasn't even 6 o'clock in the morning yet. And I got this idea like, oh, this must be a hard thing for a single dad to do, to get up, get his little girl ready, and then drive an hour to Reno to work, where I knew he worked construction. And it's not even 6 o'clock in the morning. And handing over your child like that, it was a huge revelation to me. And I realized God had put me out on the streets of my community, less for the minutes of my prayers, but more for the needs of others. So when we're talking about what prayer walking is, it's more, it really is more than just praying while you walk. It's opening up your eyes to the needs of the community around you and interceding for the people. Interceding for the businesses in your community, for the schools, for commuters heading off to work somewhere. I'd pray for the mill workers heading into the logging mill, and I prayed for the loggers as they headed out into the woods, their chainsaws rattling in the back of their truck as I saw them going by. I pray for the people in the community, in the homes. They're not even awake yet. And so it's praying on site with insight. Author Steve Hawthorne would say it's praying on site with insight. It's more than just taking care of prayer, which is what I thought I was going to do. I was just going to take care of prayer, get those few minutes and those things done, check them off my list and be done with the day. But the beauty of prayer walking is once you get the vision for wherever you are, there is a need for prayer. You're praying like 24/7. When you learn of situations, you begin to see prayer as a first response rather than a last resort. And so you become, it becomes a threefer for you, because you're walking, you're praying, and you're also doing ministry for your community. So it's a powerful practice that can change not only your life, but the lives of the people in your community around you. And I've been blessed with so many answers to prayer that God has allowed me to see. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the how-to of all of this, but I wanted to talk first about some of the changes that occurred in me. Within a couple months' time, I lost 2 dress sizes and got back down out of that overweight, part of the scale. And the next thing that I did was that I noticed that there were emotional changes in me as well. I hadn't really noticed it until my son came into the kitchen one morning. It wasn't even 7 o'clock yet. And he said, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I looked down and I looked at him and I said, "Josh, I'm just making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches." And he said, "No, Mom, you were singing." And he kind of chuckles and walks away like he'd never heard his mom. Think about this. He'd never heard his mom singing or maybe even having a pleasant word in the morning. So I knew at that moment that the cloud of depression that had covered me over all of my adult life up until that point was gone. I was a woman who hid in closets to cry, so her family wouldn't see her crying and be upset. In fact, when I wrote the book Prayer Walk, my mom said, "I never knew you struggled with depression." Pretty good show I was putting on my face to face family and friends. But there were many times in my life, I just didn't want to live anymore. Still, it's hard for me to admit and say that publicly. But through the practice of prayer walking, what that did was it changed my focus from myself to my community. And I knew that God had me out there for the needs of other people, and they became more important. I'm not saying that if you suffer from depression, you should not take medication. I probably should have been doing that. But what I'm saying was my experience was that when I began this practice of praying wherever, wherever I was, I would see a need for prayer, that lifted that depression out of my life. I call it spiritual endorphins. And the thing that I noticed was that those spiritual endorphins, that they hung around longer than the hour, that exercise high that you have for an hour or so afterwards, and you're feeling great. And then all of a sudden, phew, you can fall again. But God showed me a different way to live my life, that to shift out of myself into the needs of others. So there were two. So the physical changes that I experienced and all those aches and pains and so forth went away. Didn't need to take painkillers. Then the emotional changes, but there were spiritual changes as well. And the spiritual changes I noticed when I was out walking one day. So I'm a woman who has been also clouded by anxiety and fear. I don't know about you, but I felt like it was my job, like, to worry about everything. I think I got it from my mom. We actually hide things from her because we don't want her worry. She'll obsess and just not sleep at night. I was that woman too. I inherited those worry genes. And I would be like irrational sorts of things. So there's a difference, I think, between fear and godly caution. Godly caution is like when your teenagers start to drive and you're concerned, right? And so you have the talk with them, and then you have another talk with them, etc. That's godly caution. But sometimes we allow irrational fear to control our minds. And I was doing that. Silly things. Okay, so we had lived one time in Kansas and actually had seen a tornado when we lived there. But here was my frame of thinking. I'd be driving along anywhere, and think, when the tornado comes through, where will I go? And I'd be crossing a bridge and I think, when the bridge fails, what will I do? I was a woman who wanted a plan, but those kinds of thoughts would, creep in and take over the existence in my mind. I noticed one day that they were gone when I was crossing this one little bridge that we have in our community. It crosses Smith Neck Creek. It's a happy little creek that bubbles along all year long. Sometimes it actually floods, but it's in an area of town where it's not lighted really well. And so as I would be walking in the dark, and at that time when I was prayer walking, I was walking in the dark most days, I would get to that bridge and I'd feel this sense of fear coming over me, telling me, go home, you shouldn't be out here, something could happen to you, there are evil people out here, like boogeymen, sort of a thing. And I would just I learned to pray. I would just say, fear, leave me alone, etc. So one day I got to that bridge and I noticed I wasn't being harassed anymore. And this may sound a little strange to some of you, but I noticed that fear had left. Because see, what I had learned was to pray for whatever is in front of me, right? So as a situation would come up, I would turn to prayer rather than allow fear to take over my life. And so that allowed me to put fear in its place, did not have control over me anymore. So I was in Colorado Springs one summer visiting my publisher, and we were beginning to talk about this prayer walk book and another couple that came after that. And I thought, I'm here, I might as well enjoy some things. I had heard that my grandmother had driven all the way to the top of Pikes Peak. I thought, my grandmother did it, I can do it too. So I got in my little rental car and I'm going along, and it's just like really great road. And all of a sudden that really great road ends and it's all gravel. And there's this like 2-mile drop off on the right-hand side where I'm driving. And so I do make it to the top of Pikes Peak. And if you've ever been there, you know that there is a gift store up at the top. because, you need a t-shirt, right? That says, I got to the top of Pikes Peak. I wanted one of those t-shirts. So I get my t-shirt and I lean over into the cashier, the young man who was there. And I say, so do you ever have people who, they drive all the way up here and then they can't get back down again? And he says, are you one of those people? I said, maybe. Well, he just advised me to put it in low and take it easy on the way back down. So I made it down. And then I thought, I want to make sure that I'm no longer afraid of heights. And I know how to face my fears and to pray into them and away from them. So I went to Seven Falls, and Seven Falls is this beautiful series of 7 falls, and you can climb 7 falls. And the way you climb it is a staircase, a suspended metal staircase that you can see through. It's 246 stairs all the way up to the top. So I thought, I don't like stairs. We had fire escape stairs when I was a kid back on the East Coast. It was scary and like that recurrent nightmares for the rest of my life after that. But I thought, I'm going to conquer this. Fear is no longer going to have a place in my life. So I get to the top of the stairs and I see the falls. All of a sudden, as always happens in Colorado Springs at 4:30 in the afternoon, it thunders, it crashes, there's lightning. And I'm thinking, probably not a good idea to be on top of a mountain in a thunderstorm. So I thought, I'll just take the little elevator down, and then then I don't have to go down those wet stairs. Well, no, they always close the elevator, of course, during a thunderstorm. What would be worse, getting stuck in an elevator? So I headed to the stairs and I thought, it's just one step at a time. It's just one step at a time. And really, any kind of discipline that we do, that we take on, right? Any new thing, it's just one step at a time. It's a determination, it's a discipline. You just decide to do it. I call those all D words. And so those D words had helped me establish prayer walking in my life. And I knew that they were going to be D words that would be important as I overcame fear. So God changed me from the inside out. And I am no longer a woman who lives under a cloud of depression, who lives with anxiety and fear. It has completely transformed my life. So you might be thinking, okay, that sounds good. So, but Janet, what about, can I just pray at home? Because going out, you get sweaty. Sometimes it's cold. There's snow where you may be living. It's super hot and smoky right here now where I live in the Sierra Valley. But what about, can I just do armchair prayer? I said that wrong. I want you to think about Jesus. I mean, he grew up walking, right? He went with Mary and Joseph to Nazareth, 75 miles one way and all the way back. So he's born, right? 200 miles to Egypt, 200 miles back, 75 miles to Nazareth. Then, all of those movements during his ministry, miles and miles and miles. And you're like, well, yeah, duh, Janet, there was no car. There was no other way for them to get there. But the thing is, walking changed his focus. Walking brought about a different focus. Actually, the act of walking and prayer walking can give us personal direction in our lives. Scripture tells us in Matthew 9, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at his tax collector's booth. Follow me, be my disciple. What if he hadn't been walking? What if he just stayed home in Nazareth? What if he just feared everybody should just come to him? What if he hadn't got out of his armchair? He would not have seen Matthew and then called him to be his disciple. So prayer walking can give us personal direction in our lives. Prayer walking also helps us to see people's needs. They're not all going to walk past your window, from your comfy armchair. In John 3, Jesus returns to Jerusalem and sees a man lying by the pool of Bethesda and heals him. He heals them. He sees the people's needs. And we know that wherever he walked, he saw people's needs and he healed them. He met them where they were. The same can be true for us. We might get insight. God will give us insight, in fact, as we walk and pray and ask God to show us the needs of the people who live in our neighborhood. Prayer walking also gives us insights about what is not working systematically in our community. So the disciples in Matthew 12, they're walking near the grain fields, and it's the Sabbath. You know this story. And so the disciples are gleaning, and the Pharisees come along and they criticize them for gleaning on the Sabbath. This provides a terrific teaching opportunity for Jesus about the law and the place of the law in our lives, and the difference between legalism, which is graceless living, and what Jesus brought us, which is graceful living. Provided a teaching point, and it will show us the systematic things like drugs, alcohol, graffiti, gang movements, things like that in our community that can give us new awareness, instead of having the focus then, oh, I hate this graffiti in my community, blah, blah, blah. Prayer walking shifts our eyesight to think, there's an issue. I need to pray. So prayer as a first response becomes more natural to us. Another reason is prayer walking is preparation for the harvest. In Matthew 9, he's teaching in all the villages when he saw the crowds, and he had compassion on them because they were harassed. He said, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Prayer actually is preparation for the harvest. And as we pray for our community, you will see people come to faith because of your having been on the streets and praying. Now, am I saying my prayers are so great and they're so wonderful? I get to be a partner with Jesus. I call him my personal trainer. In the Bible study that maybe you remembered, it's on, what was it called, Helen? Can't remember titles.
It's called Training for Success.
Training for Success. See, there you go. Training for Success is about Jesus, my personal trainer. He's training me for success, and I look at his life. And if we really want to be like Jesus, we need to get out there and see the needs in our community and pray for our town so that they will come to faith. The last thing I wanted to mention is that prayer walking also helps us identify with Jesus. In the triumphal entry in Luke 19, it tells us that as Jesus approached Jerusalem and he saw it, he wept over it. That's the first notice. He saw it and he walked. He was walking, he saw it, and he wept. It helps us identify with Jesus and his compassion and his great love, his sacrificial love. And we will see the needs and we can then pray. So I wanted to just, I think we can, and Helen has a poll for us and a couple polls for us, and they're kind of fun. I no guilt over any of this, but just to create a little awareness.
All right, everybody, we're going to focus on steps. We're talking about walking, and we know a lot of you are familiar with steps. And for if you only do minutes or miles or whatever, I know that 2,100 steps for me is a mile. So maybe you measure in miles. But anyway, here we go. How many steps do you average in a day? And so the question is, you can click however many. Some of you are probably very aware, maybe some are not, but how many steps do you take on average in a day? And now I'm sharing the results. You all should be able to see it on your screen. So Janet, it looks like the 33% of the people are 2,001 to 5,000. And then we got 5,000 to 7,500. So Janet, how many steps do you average a day? I'm just wondering.
I typically shoot for at least 10,000 steps a day and 7 days a week, and usually get there.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but grace, I give myself some grace sometimes as well. If I can't get out for one reason or another. Had a writing deadline yesterday, so I worked until about 9 o'clock last night to get that done.
Grace, what do you say? Jesus is graceful. I wrote that down. So graceful living. So All right.
graceful living.
So did you want to do the other poll, or do you want to
Yeah, let's
okay.
let's do the other poll too, and then that will bring relevance to what we're going to talk about.
All right. So the next poll is about, if I can find it, hold on one second. Oh, here it is. How many hours or how many minutes a week do you average in prayer? Here you go. There you go. How many minutes a week do you average in prayer? So you all might have to think about this one for a couple minutes. So how many minutes in a week do you average in prayer? And there is no prayer is any time, when you're talking to God. Let's talk, prayer. We'll just make an easy definition there. So let's see here. We got 31 to 60 minutes. It really is very close between 30 to 60 and 61 to 120 are the strong ones. So there you go. Well, thanks everybody.
That was just a little to what was meant to be not something to lay guilt on you, but was just meant to be to help you think, oh, if I could take my prayer time and I combine it with my exercise time, I can either get more minutes there or I can be more efficient with my time. But you're also thinking about it. There's that third strand. You're doing ministry for your community. So that was kind of the intent behind that I wanted to share. I wanted to give you a bunch of practical tips, and then I'll finish with some kind of inspirational stories about answers to prayer that I've had that are kind of cool. I think the most important thing is if you're starting a walking routine is that you make sure that you have a really good pair of shoes. They need to fit your feet well. They need to fit from the moment that you walk out of the store. If you are a pronator, which means your feet tend to shift inward like that, you need to have a shoe that is going to adapt for that, because otherwise your back will be out of line and you'll start to get backaches. And if you are a supinator, that means you tend to walk on the outsides of your feet. Then you need to have shoes again that adapt for that. If you have either of those tendencies, how much do I spend on shoes? I would say probably if I can get a sale, $60 on a really good pair of shoes. I have found for me, a really good pair of shoes is Asics. And I have probably the last 6 pairs of shoes I probably bought have been Asics, but any kind of shoe that is flexible enough for walking. I like a sole that has a lot of grips on the bottom. I don't like it to be just flat, because we have inclement weather where I live. I live at 5,000 feet in the Sierra Valley. And if it's at all snowy, icy, I would much rather walk in my shoes if I can, rather than to pull out I have snow walking boots as well. And I also have these really cool devices. If it is icy out, they're called Get a Grip. And they're rubberized things that you can stretch over your shoes. And they have like little cleats on the bottom, little mini cleats, so that you're completely safe out when the roads are wet. And you sound like a track star walking down your street. They're really kind of cool. And I know I can be safe with that. Sometimes I'll walk with poles. More recently, I've been doing that because I got bit by a dog twice last summer. I've been bit several times. So I like to have something to kind of put some distance between me and something of the canine persuasion out there. So that's another thing that I typically use. Your clothing, you want to dress for the weather. I like a really great sock, a cushiony sock in there, not an all cotton sock. They're too hard to put on and they're yucky. I don't like them. But you want to think about your layering clothes, dress for the weather. If typically for us in the fall, we'll start having freezing weather pretty much at least by mid-September. And so I need to dress in layers, but by the time I'm halfway into it, I'm hot. So I need to be able to take something off. Might want to think about carrying something like pepper spray if you live in an area that you might need that. And that will lead to another discussion a little bit later. You want to kind of map your walk. And what I've done in my community is so that I'm not walking in the same place all the time, that I have different segments of the town where I can go and I can cover all the streets in that particular area of town. If I walked every single street back and forth and up and down, it would take me several hours to do that. So I like to focus on different parts of the community, like the business area, up and down the business area, another day around the schools, another day, walking through different neighborhoods that exist. One area town has a little senior center. I like to walk up that way. But make a decision about when you're actually going to do this. Don't have this sort of free fall kind of attitude that, oh, it'll work out, have a specific time, set it on your phone, set the time, your alarm to go off. And so that kicks you a little bit to actually get out the door. I used to walk from 5 to 6 or 6:30 in the morning when I was teaching school. But now that I am retired from teaching, I go usually the hour wrapped around sunset. So half hour before the sun's setting, half hour after. It's a really nice, cool time of day. It's just really pleasant, and you can get really great photos with the sun setting. It's just fun to share those with people. As you're starting out a walking routine, you want to start slowly. You don't try to push yourself and decide, okay, I'm going to walk 3 miles today, and you haven't walked like in years. Don't do that to yourself, because you'll get hurt and you'll get sore and you won't want to go out again. But build up slowly, as I did to start with. I think it's also really important, especially as we're aging. And I found this out after a couple months of prayer walking, because I was getting sore. I was like super sore. And then as I was actually researching walking books, including the book Walking for Dummies, believe it or not, I read that book. When I started writing Prayer Walk, I realized, oh, it's the stretching thing. I need to stretch. I have a whole section in Prayer Walk in the book that tells you the different major muscle groups and how to stretch those effectively. You could probably find some YouTube videos, but it just becomes a really simple routine that I can get done in about 5 minutes afterwards. And I'll hold a stretch, for 20 seconds, go into your stretch and then hold it, 20 seconds. I've had shoulder surgery and a dislocated shoulder, so I can't do this very well anymore. But getting those joints and muscles stretched out are really important. But here's the thing: don't do that before you go out, because you're going to pull something. You're going to pull a muscle, a tendon, ligament, or something, and you might be, and that actually might create a problem. So at least walk about 5 minutes until you're warmed up, and then you can stretch. I do my stretching when I'm home. I don't want to do it on a street corner and look silly. So think about your time commitment, the stretching, organize how you're going to organize your walks, where you might go. But I also want you to think about some of the hard places that might be kind of hard to walk. I call this one area of my little town Samaria, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to walk in Samaria. But oh my gosh, and then God will just say, those people need prayer too. So I go there and I just make sure that it's, my town is safe. I mean, other than dogs, we're just fine. But you want to, as you're heading out, and maybe you're going to have a partner, and I'll talk about partners in a little bit. What am I? Oh, don't make a scene. It's just walking. If someone were to watch you, it would just be walking. And in fact, I struggled with the whole concept of writing a book about prayer walking, because I didn't want the world to know what I was doing. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be that lady out on the street corner. And so you don't stop, you don't put up holy hands, you don't put the arms out like that. There's a really hilarious YouTube video about how not to prayer walk. You don't do that. And even if you're going to prayer walk with your church or your community for an event, don't do that. It actually can create problems, and because people will might hassle you about it. And I organize every year a prayer walk for the schools in Reno before kids go back to school in Reno. And I had a group of people who did that around one of the local schools, and a man approached them and really gave them a hard time. So again, you don't want to create a scene. We're not out there to create a scene. Just keep walking. Don't stop. Just keep walking. There's too much to pray for to stop anyway. How can you pray? Pray for the homes, pray for the marriages in those homes, for the children, the finances of those people, pray for their health. Jesus told the disciples to bless the home as they entered. Our homes need blessing. Bless your neighborhood. The businesses, Jesus blessed the fishermen. He gave them an abundant catch. Pray for abundance. But that those business people would understand that God was bringing it about in their lives. And so for the purpose of them to surrender their life and love to Jesus and to serve him forever. Pray for the schools. Jesus blessed the children. Pray for the teachers, that pray they teach with excellence. Pray they're encouraged. It's really hard. The Zooming thing has been so hard on teachers. Pray students are receptive and the parents are supportive. Pray administration is excellent and uses resources wisely. Pray for wise curricular choices. Pray for the facilities where our children work too. I started kind of a little movement in my town when the class of 2020 was having a Zoom and they didn't have much of a school year at all. I started a prayer group for moms and actually got a bunch of gift packages together. So what happens is as you're prayer walking, you become more in tune with the needs of your community. And Jesus might ask you to do something more than prayer sometimes. You know, he might ask you, like, Janet, I think actually you are the answer to that prayer. Go help that person. You know, go help that person. So you might find that that changes your heart in that way too. Pray for the churches in your community. Pray for wisdom, insight, direction. Pray for the finances of the churches and for creative ways for them to reach the harvest field. Pray for your government, local government offices, local, county, state, federal, law enforcement, fire departments, the military, et cetera. Pray for excellence and servant hearts, and pray for those in emergency services as well. As you're walking, maybe you have a little hospital in your neighborhood. Pray for that hospital. Pray for those people. They need prayer as well. And eventually you'll learn, okay, I have a doctor's appointment. I have to leave my kid here. I'm going to sit here and look at my phone for the next hour. Maybe you could prayer walk in that hospital. Maybe you could prayer walk in around that medical facility instead. Again, it helps you shift priorities. Making time is challenging. Good intentions in our lives, as we know, we've heard it again and again through First Place Bible studies. Good intentions are absolutely worthless. You know, it's a daily decision to be disciplined. So you want to ask yourself, do you want to do this? Do you see the need? Do you care? Are you on board? And here's the thing. I never feel like walking. I never feel like walking. I never feel like, oh, I'm so excited. I get to go walk. Well, except maybe after my back surgery, then I felt happy. But every day it's a decision for me to get out there and do it. And you know why I do? Because I'm called to do it. Jesus put a call on my life to pray for my community. So I can't quit. As long as I'm able, I'm going to be walking and praying. So what I wanted to share too, a little bit about maybe some of these fun little stories and about answers to prayer. And then some of them have mysteriously ended up right in the Sierra Booster. So we have a little tabloid newspaper that comes out fortnightly in Loyalton, and it doesn't come out every 2 weeks. On the masthead, it says it comes out fortnightly, which is every 2 weeks. But it's pretty funny. It's called a pictorial newspaper, and the idea is that pictures are worth 1,000 words. So on any given page, you'll see like 5 pictures and captions, and it's mostly that rather than articles. And the articles aren't so newsworthy anyway. You can write a letter to the editor there, and she will print every single word, even if it's all lies. It's pretty hysterical. So I began seeing answers to my prayer right in the Sierra Booster. I'd been praying for John and Arlene, and one day I was praying, that they come to Christ and that they would love and serve him forever. That's kind of my basic format prayer. And then one day I was walking past their home and God said, pray they get married. Where did that come from? I mean, that didn't come from me, because I knew that they had been members of Rotary for many, many years. And if Rotary couldn't convince them to get married, well, my prayers, what effect could that have? God said, pray they get married. So I did. I prayed for about 2 months that they would get married and that they would learn to love and serve Jesus. And then all of a sudden in the Sierra Booster, there is the invitation to their wedding. Come to the city park, bring potluck. The whole town is invited to their wedding. I had to laugh. It was great. And that showed me that, to pray for crazy things, to pray for amazing, crazy things, pray beyond your reach. Pray beyond your reach, beyond your rational thinking, beyond what you might think is, that would never happen. Pray for the miraculous to be done. And I also began praying for Diane, the video store owner. Remember, this is how long I've been prayer walking. I mean, there were video stores then. You remember them? Some of you are not old enough, I would bet. But you would go and you rent a video. So in one corner of this little video store, Diane had this whole section where she had all the skateboard paraphernalia, because she just loved the skater boys. And, they were things like, new wheels and things like that. I don't know all the things, but, hats, that say skateboarding is not a crime, bumper stickers and all of that kind of thing. So, and she started this collection to create money to create a skateboard park for the kids, because we didn't have one in our town. That seemed like a real stretch, because my community is not rich at all. And skateboarding was maybe not anyone's priority other than this handful of boys that really wanted one. So I began praying for her, and I began praying that she would come to Christ, etc., and that her business would thrive, and that she would understand this comes from God. And then one day I was in church on a Sunday, and there she is in church. She's in church. I couldn't believe it. A couple Sundays later, she went forward in church. It was one of those little Baptist churches like that. And she said that she professed Christ as her Savior and Lord. I was like, whoa, I was so excited. Like, God, you did it. You heard my prayer and you answered my prayer. And I was just so excited about that. Then a couple months later, she goes forward again. And she says, I need prayer because I've got stage 4 cancer and I don't have long to live. I was so mad at God. She ended up dying. She was, literally our pastor baptized her, sprinkled water on her when she was in her bed. And I was so mad at God, because here's this woman and all she wants to do is build a skate park for the kids. I thought, well, what was the reasoning behind that, God? I just didn't, I was upset. But you know what happened? In her memory, people began to give. People began to give like thousands and thousands of dollars. And then Granite Construction, one of the biggest construction companies in the whole United States, they donate all the labor for this skate park. And the skate park happened about a year after she died. Crazy, crazy answers to prayer. Another was my neighbor. And he had various yard art, like he collected Chevelles, one in each color, very pastel, pink, and then light blue, yellow, and they all line up very neatly, but not exactly what I would like to see in my neighbor's backyard. And I prayed for him, and I was praying that God would remove the blight in our neighborhood. And then one day God said, Janet, do you not care about the blight in his heart? And I realized I was praying wrong. I was praying the wrong thing. Shortly after that, I ran into a friend at a little book signing downtown at the Sierra Booster office. And she said, oh, by the way, pray for Frank. And I said, well, I am. What's going on? She goes, well, he's coming to church and he's reading the Bible all the way through. And this was an astonishment to me, because not only did he have yard art, but one day earlier, a couple of years before then, I had looked out my second story bathroom window and saw two burning crosses faced in the direction of my home. You see, we were about to host the very first Black South African exchange student through the Rotary Exchange program in our home. And so I look out and I see burning crosses. But in a couple years' time, he is going to church and he's reading the Bible all the way through. Who does this kind of thing? God does this miraculous thing where lives are completely transformed from one way to another. And the thing about prayer walking is we can partner with Jesus in that. We can get out there and pray for these people and then just watch what God will do. Just watch for God to bring that harvest. So I'm just a little enthusiastic about prayer walking. Can you guess? And
Yeah.
maybe
Janet,
God
we
is
have a few questions too.
okay. Good.
I don't want to interrupt you, but it's like we have questions.
No, I'm happy to.
First of all, they want you to repeat what you pray for others. Somebody said to come to Christ and serve him.
Yeah.
What do you say?
It's very simple and it almost feels like remote control, from time after time. I'll say, God, would you bring this family, if this family does not know you, would you bring them to a saving knowledge that they accept Jesus as their Savior and Lord in their lives. And then may they learn to love and serve him forever. And that's pretty much true, like for the businesses or for the business owners. Also, I pray that God, would you bless them with abundance and may their business be successful and may they know that it's came from you and love and serve you forever.
Nice.
In the schools, I'll pray like, Lord, may these teachers teach godly concepts and may they actually come to personal knowledge of you.
We have two questions about praying with others. So we have one that said, would you suggest walking with another Christian friend to prayer walk? So
absolutely. I think there's safety in numbers for one thing. It also brings about accountability because if your friend's going to be on the corner, as my friend will be on Wednesday when I get back from this event where I am at Lake Tahoe, at 6:45, I'm meeting her in the back of the Catholic Church and we're going out and we're walking and praying. But it also creates a heightened awareness of needs because you may not be aware of something, but she might be. Like my friend June said, well, who lives there? And I said, well, I'm not sure. She goes, well, why don't you find out?
Right.
And, that kind of thing. And also there is power in numbers, where two or three are gathered, I am with you. And so it brings about a greater sense of God's will. And so praying in his will, then he answers those prayers too. But yeah.
Someone in chat just said, do you pray out loud?
If you're with a partner, that's something you want to decide ahead of time. Do you want to pray silently? Do you want to pray out loud? Here's the thing. If you don't pray out loud, you're probably just talking.
Yeah.
And there is very much the tendency that most people, and I don't walk with a lot of people because pretty much if you're going to go for an hour, they're talking for 45 minutes. And then you find like, well, I think we need to pray, So you need to have that decided ahead of time. And I don't do it in such a way that if others walk by, then I just, I'm not real vocal.
Right.
About it. I don't want to create a scene.
I know a lady at my church and I were both felt to pray over our community and we met on Mondays, but we stopped at every house and we didn't just said a prayer of blessing for each house and just Lord bless this house, this family. If the house was vacant or, we would pray for the future owner or the current owner, if it was under construction. But it took us from February to November and we just met once a week and did it for, I don't know, we walked a mile and a half, however long it took us. But I agree with you. You have to be intentional not to chit chat because it can get into that chit chatty thing. So,
right. And I recently had a prayer because there was this, my house is on one end of Main Street. And then there's this other house that's also 2-story and gray on the other end of Main Street. And it went up for sale. I'm like, oh Lord, bring a young family, bring it. a former student of mine bought that house. I was like, praise the Lord. I was so excited because it's like breathing life into our little town.
All right. So we have one question. If you have back or knee issues and unable to walk for long periods of time, can you pray walk in your home?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a track in my home. Sometimes I do that if the weather's really bad, or right now we have a smoke index of 400 particles or per whatever. It's not healthy right now. So I've done that. And sometimes I do that to add on steps to get my 10,000 steps if I haven't hit them for one reason or another. And if you understand that wherever you are, there's a need for prayer, you are also prayer walking in the Walmart line. You are also prayer walking as you're driving along. You're prayer walking as you're waiting in the doctor's office. So it creates a heightened sensitivity to the needs of the others around you.
The next question is, what's the longest distance you have walked at one time?
Probably 7 or 8 miles. And I was typically getting about 5 miles in when I was teaching. I walked for about an hour and a half.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, our time is almost up. So I wanted to just give a few shout outs to Janet. Her book is called Prayer Walking. It actually was released. Is it 20 or 25 years out, Janet?
It's in its 20th year now. And the correct title is Prayer Walk.
Prayer Walk. Okay.
Yeah. Prayer Walking was written by Steve Hawthorne, and it's about event-centered prayer walking. Mine is about devotional prayer walking.
So Prayer Walk, and it's also available in audio.
Yes.
Janet released the audiobook this year. I also wanted to just copy and paste her website. If you want to go to her website, janetmchenry.com, it's pretty easy to find. But she has a magazine, a little short magazine that she does, an e-magazine that comes in every month. And it's one of those ones, for me at least, that stays in my email box until I have time to read it. As you all know, we were busy with Summit, so I just read it the other day. But I do want to just say, you can sign up on her website for her free email list if you want to do that. But she also, Training for Success is out of print. It was one of First Place for Health Bible studies, but Janet is, we love her Bible studies. We love your prayer. We love your commitment to spiritual disciplines.
Thank
So
you.
You are welcome. I'm going to change it to gallery so people can see both of us. So for those of you new to First Place, welcome. We are just focused on being healthy, wellness for Christ. And so you can find more about that at firstplaceforhealth.com. If you want to get started, just click on the Get Started button and it'll help you get started. This video will be available to watch again on our YouTube channel, and all our past webinars are on our YouTube channel. And you will actually get a link to that once we get it uploaded, and it'll be a couple days, and you'll get a link from us from the same Zoom email that you registered for. So I just want to thank you, Janet. It was awesome. I'm so excited. And I think we all need to go out and pray. Oh, one other thing. I know a bunch of us that are already on here are in a Facebook group. Janet actually manages a Facebook group called the Walking Club. And it encourages people to walk. I am pasting it in the Facebook in chat right now if you want to go and copy it. But it is a Facebook group called the Walking Club, and people are prayer walking, but they share pictures. And it is to encourage us all to go out and walk and prayer walk for the Lord. So I realized, oh yeah, they might be interested in that as well. So it just goes. I love that it's a 3-for-1, 2-for-1, but a 3-for-1. We get to walk, we get to pray, and do ministry. So thank you, everybody. Next month, we have Wendy speak that wrote the 40 Days Sugar Fast. So we'll see you next month. Take care, everybody. Bye.